Matteo Constanti was 38 years old and had been running the Constanti crime family for 12 years. In that time, he'd survived 3 assassination attempts, expanded operations into 6 new cities, and cultivated a reputation for being absolutely unreadable. People who negotiated with him said it was like playing poker against a statue. His face gave nothing away. His voice never wavered. His eyes revealed no emotion. He was a ghost in an expensive suit, and he was sitting in Doctor Simone Laurent's office because a federal judge had given him a choice: mandatory therapy sessions or 6 months in prison for contempt of court. Matteo had chosen therapy. Prison was inconvenient. Dr. Simone Laurent was 32 years old and had been practicing criminal psychology for 7 years. She specialized in high-functioning sociopaths, narcissists, and people who'd committed violence without remorse. Her client list read like a who's who of New York's criminal elite, though she couldn't discuss specifics due to confidentiality agreements. She had a reputation for being brilliant, unflappable, and impossible to manipulate. She was a steel trap wrapped in designer clothes. The office itself was carefully designed to put clients at ease while maintaining professional distance. Soft gray walls, comfortable leather chairs, a mahogany desk that was expensive but not ostentatious, certificates on the wall proving her credentials: PhD from Columbia, fellowships at 3 major institutions, published papers in peer-reviewed journals. A window overlooking Central Park, the view obscured just enough by sheer curtains to prevent distraction. Simone sat in her chair behind the desk, perfectly composed. She wore a charcoal gray pantsuit that was tailored to perfection, a white silk blouse underneath, and small pearl earrings. Her hair was natural, styled in elegant locks that fell past her shoulders. Her skin was the color of warm umber, smooth and flawless. Her eyes were dark brown, almost black, and they missed nothing. She looked at Matteo Constanti the way a scientist might examine a particularly interesting specimen. Matteo sat across from her, equally composed. He wore a navy blue suit that probably cost $15,000, a white shirt with no tie, and a watch that was worth more than most people's cars. His hair was dark and perfectly styled. His face was all sharp angles and classic Italian features: strong jaw, straight nose, full lips that rarely smiled. His eyes were gray, pale, and cold. He looked at Dr. Laurent the way a chess master might study an opponent's opening move. They'd been sitting in silence for exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds. Simone was counting. This was a test. Most clients became uncomfortable with silence and would start talking, revealing information they hadn't meant to share. It was a simple technique, but effective. Matteo seemed content to sit in silence forever. Finally, Simone spoke. "Mr. Constanti, do you know why you're here?" "Because Judge Morrison doesn't like me." "That's the mechanism. I'm asking about the reason." "The reason is that I refused to answer questions during a deposition. The judge found me in contempt. My lawyer suggested therapy would look better than 6 months in Rikers." His voice was smooth, cultured, completely devoid of emotion. "So here I am, doing my time in a more comfortable setting. You view this as punishment, isn't it?" "That depends on what you get out of it." "I doubt I'll get anything out of it except the satisfaction of fulfilling a legal obligation." Simone leaned back in her chair, studying him. His body language was controlled but not tense. He was comfortable, which meant he was either very confident or very good at hiding discomfort. His hands rested loosely on the arms of the chair. His posture was relaxed but alert. He was giving her nothing. "Interesting. Tell me about yourself, Mr. Constanti. What would you like to know?" "Whatever you'd like to tell me." "That's a psychiatrist's question. You're trying to see what I consider important enough to mention first." "Is that a problem?" "It's predictable." Now Simone smiled just slightly. "Most people don't recognize basic therapeutic techniques." "Most people aren't me." "So I'm learning." She pulled out a notepad, not because she needed to take notes, but because it gave her something to do with her hands. "Let's try something more direct. What do you do for a living?" "I'm a businessman." "What kind of business?" "Import, export, real estate, some hospitality ventures, restaurant management." "And the illegal business?" His expression didn't change. "I don't know what you're referring to." "Mr. Constanti, we both know why Judge Morrison sent you here. Pretending you're just a legitimate businessman wastes both our time. Client-therapist privilege means I can't repeat anything you tell me unless you're planning to harm yourself or others. What you say in this room stays in this room." Then why would I tell you anything? Because the court requires you to attend 20 sessions. We can spend those 20 sessions playing word games, or we can have actual conversations. One of those options is productive. The other is tedious. For the first time, something flickered in Matteo's eyes. Not quite amusement, but close. You're very direct, Dr. Laurent. I find it saves time. Most therapists tiptoe around the subject of my alleged criminal activities. I'm not most therapists. No, he said quietly, you're not. Another silence. This one felt different, charged. Most people fear me, Matteo said suddenly. Simone tilted her head, considering. Most people bore me. His eyebrow rose a fraction of an inch. It was the most reaction she'd gotten from him. Is that right? Most people who sit in that chair fall into one of three categories. They're either genuinely disturbed and need help, they're narcissists who want to talk about themselves for an hour, or they're criminals who think they're smarter than me and try to manipulate the sessions. She set down her notepad. You don't seem to fit any of those categories. What category do I fit? I don't know yet. That's what makes you interesting. Matteo leaned forward slightly. It was a small movement, but in the context of his previous stillness, it felt significant. You're not afraid of me. Should I be? Most people think so. I'm not most people. You said that yourself. I did. He studied her with new intensity. Why aren't you afraid? You know who I am, what I do. Because fear requires uncertainty. I know exactly what you are, Mr. Constanti. You're a man who's built an empire on other people's fear. You've cultivated a reputation for being dangerous and unpredictable. But right now, in this office, you're just a client who's legally obligated to sit in that chair for 50 minutes a week. She held his gaze. The question isn't whether I'm afraid of you. The question is why you need people to be afraid of you. The silence that followed was electric. Matteo's expression didn't change, but Simone saw something shift behind his eyes. Recognition, maybe. Or challenge. You're trying to provoke me. I'm trying to understand you. Why? Because it's my job. And because you're right. I do find most people boring. You, Mr. Constanti, are not boring. His lips curved into something that might have been a smile, though it didn't reach his eyes. Most people fear me, Dr. Laurent, but you? You're analyzing me like I'm a puzzle to be solved. Aren't you? Everyone's a puzzle. The question is whether you're smart enough to solve mine. That sounds like a challenge. It is. Simone felt a thrill of excitement she hadn't experienced in years. Most of her clients were predictable. Even the smart ones followed patterns she'd seen 1,000 times. But Matteo Constanti was different. He was sharp, controlled, and clearly intelligent enough to make this interesting. I accept, she said. Just like that? Just like that. He leaned back in his chair, that not-quite smile still playing at his lips. Then let's establish some ground rules, Doctor. You want me to be honest? Fine. But honesty goes both ways. You analyze me, I analyze you. You ask invasive questions, I get to do the same. Fair? This isn't how therapy typically works. I'm not a typical client. No, Simone agreed. You're not. She considered his proposal. It was unconventional, potentially unethical, definitely outside the boundaries of normal therapeutic practice. But normal therapeutic practice wouldn't work with someone like Matteo Constanti. He'd see through standard techniques and deflect every attempt to make real progress. If she wanted to understand him, she'd have to meet him on his level. All right, she said. Ground rules. We both commit. To honesty. No deflection, no manipulation, no games. When we're in this office, we're equals. I analyze you. You analyze me. Deal? He extended his hand across the desk. Deal. She shook it. His grip was firm, his skin warm. The contact lasted exactly 3 seconds, but Simone felt the weight of what they'd just agreed to. This was going to be dangerous. Our time's up, she said, glancing at the clock. Same time next week? I'll be here. He stood, buttoning his suit jacket with practiced ease. One question before I leave, Dr. Laurent. Yes? Why did you agree to this? You had to know I'd use our arrangement to get inside your head. Simone stood as well, meeting his eyes across the desk. Because you're the first person in 3 years who's made this job interesting, and because I think you'll be the first person who actually tries to understand me instead of fear me or manipulate me. You want to be understood. Don't we all? He tilted his head, considering her. Most people fear me, Dr. Laurent. And most people bore me, Mr. Constanti. I think we've established that. Indeed we have. He walked to the door, then paused with his hand on the handle. For what it's worth, you're the first therapist I haven't wanted to kill within the first 10 minutes. I'll take that as a compliment. You should. Then he was gone, leaving Simone alone in her office with a racing heart and the distinct feeling that she'd just started something she might not be able to finish. The week between sessions felt longer than it should have. Simone found herself thinking about Matteo Constanti at odd moments, during her morning run, while reviewing case notes for other clients, late at night when sleep eluded her. She told herself it was professional interest. He was a fascinating case study, a high-functioning criminal with clear intelligence and emotional control. Of course she was thinking about him. But there was something else underneath the professional interest, something that felt dangerous and exciting. She'd felt seen during their session, truly seen. He'd looked at her and understood immediately that she was bored with her life, that she craved intellectual stimulation, that beneath her professional competence was a woman who wanted to be challenged. No one had seen that in years. When Thursday arrived, Simone spent an extra 10 minutes getting ready. She told herself it was about maintaining professional appearance. The black pantsuit she chose had nothing to do with the way Matteo's eyes had tracked her movements during their last session. The red silk blouse underneath wasn't chosen because red was powerful, confident. The extra attention to her makeup was just good grooming. She was lying to herself and she knew it. Matteo arrived exactly on time. He always would, she suspected. Men like him viewed punctuality as a form of control. Dr. Laurent, he settled into the same chair, assuming the same relaxed posture. Mr. Constanti. She pulled out her notepad. How was your week? Productive. I closed a deal in Philadelphia. Attended my nephew's confirmation. Had 3 meetings that could have been emails. He paused. Thought about you approximately 17 times. Simone's pen stilled on the paper. You counted? I count everything, doctor. It's how I stay alive. Numbers don't lie. People do. His pale gray eyes fixed on her. You thought about me, too. Don't bother denying it. I can see it in the way you're sitting. Fractionally forward compared to last week. Your pulse is elevated, pupils slightly dilated. You're anticipating this session. She should have been disturbed by his observation skills. Instead, she was impressed. You're very perceptive. It's a survival skill in my line of work. Reading people means knowing who's loyal, who's planning betrayal, who's lying about their capabilities. He crossed one ankle over the opposite knee. You're easy to read compared to most people. Am I? You telegraph your intelligence in everything you do. The way you phrase questions, the split-second pauses while you analyze responses, the slight tilt of your head when something interests you. He leaned forward slightly. You've tilted your head 3 times since I walked in. Simone consciously straightened her posture. You're trying to throw me off balance. Is it working? No. Liar. She smiled despite herself. Fine. Yes, you're unsettling. Happy? Ecstatic. But his face remained impassive. My turn for a question? Why criminal psychology? You're brilliant enough for any specialty. Why choose to spend your days inside the heads of murderers, thieves, and men like me? Because everyone else is too easy. Elaborate. Regular therapy is about helping people overcome trauma, manage depression, navigate relationships. All important work, but it's... She searched for the right word. Predictable. The human mind follows patterns. Once you understand the patterns, most people's problems have obvious solutions. But criminals are different. Criminals are different. You operate outside normal social constraints. Your patterns are more complex. Your motivations are layered. Understanding someone like you requires real work, real analysis. It's challenging. You're addicted to the challenge. Guilty? That's dangerous, Dr. Laurent. Addiction to danger has a way of escalating. I'm aware of the risks. Are you? He studied her intently. You sit across from some of the most dangerous people in New York City. You get inside their heads, learn how they think, understand their violence. Don't you worry that understanding will become sympathizing? I don't sympathize with criminals, Mr. Constanti. I understand them. There's a difference. What's the difference? Sympathy implies I excuse or justify their actions. Understanding simply means I comprehend why they make the choices they make. I can understand why poverty drives someone to steal without sympathizing with theft. I can understand why abuse creates abusers without excusing violence. And me? Do you understand me yet? I'm beginning to. Tell me what you see. Simone set down her notepad. This was the moment. She could give him a surface-level analysis, keep things professional and safe, or she could dive deep, show him she was serious about their agreement to be equals in this room. She chose depth. You're a man who learned young that emotion is weakness. Something happened in childhood, probably around 8 or 9 years old, that taught you vulnerability gets punished. So you built walls, carefully constructed defenses that keep everyone at a distance. You control every situation because losing control feels like dying. She leaned forward, but underneath all that control is someone who's exhausted. Maintaining those walls takes enormous energy. You're tired of being unreadable. Part of you wants someone to see through the defenses. That's why you're really here. The silence stretched between them. Matteo's face remained expressionless, but Simone saw his fingers tighten fractionally on the arm of the chair. She'd hit something true. Close, he said finally. Not quite right, but close. What did I miss? I was 7, not 8, and it wasn't something that happened. It was someone. His voice didn't change, but the air in the room felt heavier. My father. He ran the Constanti family before me. He was, exacting. Emotional displays were viewed as weakness. Weakness was punished. How did he punish you? Does it matter? Context matters. Matteo was quiet for a long moment, then he'd lock me in the basement, sometimes for hours, sometimes overnight. He'd tell me I could come out when I'd learned to control myself, to be a man, to be worthy of the Constanti name. Simone felt something cold settle in her chest. How often? Often enough that I learned very quickly. By the time I was 10, I never cried, never showed fear, never displayed anger unless it served a strategic purpose. He met her eyes. I became exactly what he wanted. A perfect soldier. A future leader who couldn't be manipulated through emotion. At what cost? That's what you're here to figure out, isn't it? I'm here to help you figure it out. Why would I want to? I'm successful, powerful, feared. I've built an empire. Emotion would only weaken me. Emotion isn't weakness, Mr. Constanti. In my world, it absolutely is. Then maybe your world is wrong. He laughed. It was a short, sharp sound without humor. My world is what it is. I didn't make the rules. I just learned to excel within them. You could make different rules. Could I? I'm the head of a crime family, Dr. Laurent. I inherited loyalty and expectations. Hundreds of people depend on me for their livelihoods. Rival families watch for any sign of weakness. The FBI watches for any mistake. One slip, one moment of vulnerability, and everything falls apart. So you sacrifice your humanity to maintain control. Yes. The simple admission hung in the air. Simone saw the truth of it in his eyes. Matteo Constanti had made himself into a machine because that's what survival required. And now he didn't know how to be anything else. What would it take for you to feel safe enough to be human again? I don't know. I haven't felt safe since I was 6 years old. Before your father started the punishments. Before my mother died. His voice softened fractionally. She was the only person who made me feel safe. After she was gone, my father became harder, more demanding. He needed me to be strong enough to survive in his world. Did you love your father? I feared him. Love wasn't part of the equation. Do you fear anyone now? Matteo considered the question. Not in the traditional sense, but I fear failure. I fear disappointing the family. I fear making a mistake that gets people killed. Those fears are productive. They keep me sharp. They also keep you isolated. Isolation is safe. Isolation is lonely. Yes. The word was barely above a whisper. It is. Simone's heart ached for him. This powerful, dangerous man was fundamentally alone in the world. He traded connection for survival and convinced himself it was worth it. Mr. Constanti, Matteo, if we're doing this, if we're being equals, then use my name. Matteo, she corrected, I think you're here because part of you is tired of being alone. Part of you wants to be known, really known, Not feared or obeyed, but understood. And if you're right, if that's what I want, what then? Then we work on it. Carefully, at your pace. No pressure, no judgment, just exploration. What do you get out of it? The question caught her off guard. What do you mean? You said most people bore you. You said I make this job interesting, but there's more to it than that. You're invested in this already, I can see it. So I'm asking, what do you get out of understanding me? Simone took a breath. Honesty. They'd agreed to honesty. I get to feel less alone too, she admitted. I spend my days listening to people's problems, analyzing their thoughts, helping them navigate their lives. But no one does that for me. No one asks how I'm doing or what I'm thinking. I'm always the analyst, never the analyzed. With you, I feel seen. You look at me and you actually see me. Not just Dr. Laurent, but Simone. That's rare. That's valuable. So we're using each other. We're helping each other. There's a difference. Is there? I like to think so. Matteo smiled. It was small, barely there, but genuine. You're dangerous, Simone Laurent. So are you, Matteo Constanti. Then I suppose we're well matched. I suppose we are. The session ended with a sense of having crossed some invisible threshold. They'd moved beyond therapist and client into something more complex. Equals, maybe. Or allies. Or something neither of them had a name for yet. As Matteo left, he paused at the door. Simone? Yes? Thank you for not being boring. Thank you for not being predictable. I'll see you next week. I'm counting on it. Over the following weeks, their sessions developed a rhythm. They'd start with surface topics, Matteo's week, business developments, family obligations, before diving into deeper territory. Simone learned about his childhood in layers, each revelation adding context to the man he'd become. Matteo learned about her too, slowly peeling back her professional armor to discover the woman underneath. Simone had grown up in Montreal, the daughter of Haitian immigrants who'd worked 3 jobs between them to afford her education. She'd been brilliant from a young age, skipping 2 grades and entering university at 16. Her parents had died in a house fire when she was 23, during her first year of graduate school. She'd thrown herself into work to cope with the grief, earning her PhD in record time and establishing her practice before most people her age had finished their education. You ran from the pain, Matteo observed during their 8th session. I channeled it productively. That's one way to phrase it. Another would be that you buried your grief under achievement and never actually processed it. Simone felt the observation land like a punch. I processed it fine. Did you? When's the last time you talked about your parents? I don't need to talk about them. They're gone. Talking won't bring them back. No, but talking might let you grieve properly instead of carrying the weight of unshed tears. This isn't your job, Matteo. I'm supposed to be analyzing you. We're supposed to be equals, remember? That means I get to point out when you're full of shit. Despite herself, Simone laughed. I'm not full of shit. You're absolutely full of shit. You're doing exactly what I did, bearing emotion under competence, telling yourself that achievement is enough. That being successful means you're fine, but you're not fine. You're exhausted and lonely and desperate for someone to see you as more than a professional facade. Stop it. Why? Because I'm right? Because you're being cruel. I'm being honest. That's what we agreed to. Simone felt tears prick at her eyes. She blinked them back furiously. She would not cry in front of a client. She would not break down during a session. But Matteo had found her weak spot and pressed hard, and suddenly all the grief she'd been suppressing for 9 years was threatening to surface. Simone. His voice was gentler now. Let it out. It's safe here. You're my client. Right now, I'm your friend, and I'm telling you it's safe. The tears came, not dramatic sobs, just quiet tears sliding down her cheeks while she sat frozen in her chair, shocked by the sudden release of emotion. Matteo didn't say anything. He just sat there, present and patient, while she cried for the first time in almost a decade. When she finally regained control, she felt hollowed out, empty, but also lighter somehow. I'm sorry, she said. Don't be. I've been waiting for you to crack since the 3rd session. Why? Because perfect people aren't real, and you were trying so hard to be perfect for me. Professional, composed, always in control. But that's not who you are, not really. You're brilliant and exhausted and carrying more grief than anyone should have to carry alone. You're one to talk about carrying burdens alone. I know. That's how I recognized it in you. He leaned forward. We're the same, Simone. We've both built armor to survive. Mine's made of cold control. Yours is made of professional competence. But underneath, we're just two people who are tired of being alone. She looked at him, really looked at him, and saw past all his defenses to the man beneath. Vulnerable, damaged. Desperate for connection, but terrified to reach for it. What do we do about that? She asked. I don't know, but I'd like to figure it out with you. That's not professional? No, it's not. But it's honest. They sat in silence, the weight of what was happening between them settling over the room like fog. This is dangerous, Simone said finally. Everything worthwhile is. I could lose my license. I could lose everything. Then why are we doing this? Matteo stood and walked around the desk, slowly, carefully, giving her time to tell him to stop. When she didn't, he held out his hand. Because most people fear me, he said. But you just see me. Simone took his hand and stood. They were close now, close enough that she could feel his warmth. And most people bore me, she replied. But you challenge me. What happens now? I don't know. This is uncharted territory for both of us. Should we stop? Go back to professional boundaries? Probably. Are we going to? No. He smiled, a real smile that transformed his face. Good. Then he was gone, leaving Simone standing beside her desk, hands still warm from his touch, heart pounding with equal parts fear and exhilaration. She'd crossed a line. They both had. There was no going back now. The weeks that followed were a delicate dance. Officially, Matteo was still her client, attending his court-mandated sessions. Unofficially, they were something else. Friends, maybe, or two damaged people helping each other heal. The boundaries blurred more with each meeting. They started meeting outside the office, coffee at a quiet cafe in Brooklyn, dinner at restaurants where Matteo's reputation meant they were left alone, long walks through Central Park where they could talk without the weight of professionalism. Simone learned about the business, not the illegal parts, though those came up tangentially, but the logistics of running an organization, the politics, the constant threat, assessment, the weight of being responsible for hundreds of people's livelihoods. Matteo learned about psychology, not just the theory she'd learned in school, but her observations about human nature, why people made the choices they made, how trauma shaped personality, what it meant to heal. They talked about everything, philosophy and mortality, power and vulnerability, what it meant to be good when you'd done bad things, what it meant to be successful when you felt empty inside. I killed a man when I was 19, Matteo told her one night over dinner. They were at a small Italian restaurant in Queens, sitting in a private back room where they wouldn't be disturbed. He'd tried to kill my father. I shot him 3 times. Center mass. He was dead before he hit the ground. Simone didn't flinch. How did you feel? Nothing. That's what scared me most. I'd ended a human life and I felt nothing. Just cold calculation. Problem solved, threat eliminated. You'd been trained to feel nothing. That doesn't excuse it. I'm not excusing it, I'm explaining it. Your father spent 12 years conditioning you to suppress emotion. By 19, you'd mastered the skill. The fact that you felt nothing wasn't a moral failing. It was a survival adaptation. Does that make it better? It makes it understandable. He was quiet for a long moment. I've killed 11 people, Simone. Some in self-defense, some to protect the family, some because they pose a threat that couldn't be neutralized any other way. Does understanding why I did it make you feel differently about me? She should have said yes. Should have pulled back, remembered he was a murderer, a criminal, someone whose morality operated on a completely different axis than normal society, but she couldn't. No, she said honestly. It makes me sad for you, for what you had to become to survive, but it doesn't change how I see you. Why not? Because I know you, the real you, the man who sits in my office and talks about being tired, the man who cried when telling me about his mother, the man who wants to be good but doesn't know how to reconcile that with the life he inherited. I see all of you, Matteo, including the violence, and I'm not afraid. You should be. I know. He reached across the table and took her hand. His thumb traced small circles on her palm. You're extraordinary. So are you. I'm a monster. You're a man who's done monstrous things. There's a difference. Is there? I believe so. Monsters don't feel remorse. Monsters don't lie awake at night questioning their choices. Monsters don't attend therapy because they want to be better. You're not a monster, Matteo. You're just lost. And you think you can help me find my way? I think we can help each other. He squeezed her hand. What are we doing, Simone? I don't know. Something dangerous and probably stupid. Should we stop? Probably. Are we going to? No. This time, when he smiled, she saw everything in it. Warmth, affection, hope, vulnerability. All the things he'd spent 30 years learning to hide, offered to her freely. I care about you, he said, more than I've cared about anyone in a very long time. More than is probably wise. I care about you, too, despite knowing better. We're a pair of fools, then. Brilliant fools, though. The best kind. They stayed at the restaurant until it closed, talking and laughing and existing in the bubble they'd created. A space where Matteo wasn't a crime boss and Simone wasn't a therapist. Just two people who understood each other in a way that felt impossible and inevitable all at once. When Matteo dropped her off at her apartment in the West Village, he walked her to the door. They stood in the dim hallway, neither wanting to say goodnight. Thank you, Simone said, for tonight, for all of this. Thank you for not being afraid of me. Thank you for not being bored by me. He laughed softly. You could never bore me, Simone Laurent. You're the most fascinating person I've ever met. Careful. Compliments like that will go to my head. Good. You deserve to know how extraordinary you are. He kissed her forehead. It was gentle, almost reverent, and it sent shivers down Simone's spine. Then he was gone, disappearing into the night, leaving her standing in her doorway with her heart racing. She was falling in love with Matteo Constanti. It was the most dangerous, ill-advised thing she'd ever done, and she couldn't bring herself to stop. The relationship deepened over the following months. They were careful, discreet, aware that both their positions made public acknowledgement impossible. Simone was risking her license and reputation. Matteo was risking his carefully constructed image of control. But in private, they were just Matteo and Simone, two people who'd found something rare and precious in each other. Matteo began to open up in ways he never had before. He talked about his fears, his regrets, the weight of his position. He let her see the exhaustion beneath the control, the humanity beneath the monster. Simone opened up too. She talked about her parents, really grieved them for the first time in 9 years. She talked about her loneliness, her desperate need to be challenged, her fear that she'd never find anyone who could match her intellectually. I've dated, she told him one night. They were in his penthouse apartment in Tribeca, lying on the couch with her head on his chest while he absently played with her locks. But it never worked. The men I met were either intimidated by my intelligence or they fetishized it. No one just accepted me, as I am. Their loss. I thought I'd be alone forever, resigned myself to it. And now I have you, and you're complicated and dangerous and probably going to break my heart eventually. But you see me, really see me. That's worth the risk. He kissed the top of her head. I won't break your heart. Not intentionally. You might not have a choice. Your world is dangerous, Matteo. Something could happen. Someone could find out about us. There are 1,000 ways this could end badly. Then we'll deal with them. Together. You're very confident. I'm very motivated. I spent 30 years not feeling anything real. And then you walked into my life and suddenly everything feels real. I'm not giving that up without a fight. Even if it costs you? Even then. Simone sat up to look at him. His gray eyes were soft, more open than she'd ever seen them. The walls were down. He was completely vulnerable with her. I love you, she said. The words surprised her even as she said them. She hadn't planned to say it, but it was true, undeniable, and she needed him to know. Matteo's breath caught. For a moment, he just stared at her, processing. Then, I love you too. I didn't know I was capable of it anymore. But I love you, Simone. Completely. Terrifyingly. Irrevocably. That's very romantic for someone who claims not to feel things. You're a special exception to all my rules. She kissed him. It was soft and sweet and full of promise. When they broke apart, both breathless, Simone felt something click into place. This was right. Dangerous and complicated, but right. What happens now? She asked. Now we figure out how to make this work. How to balance your career and my responsibilities. How to keep you safe from the dangers of my world. I don't need protecting. I know, but I need to protect you anyway. It's how I show love. Let me have that. All right. But I get to protect you too. From what? From yourself. From the loneliness. From the belief that you have to be alone to be strong. You don't, Matteo. You're stronger with me than without me. I know. That terrifies me. Good. Fear keeps you honest. He laughed. How did I survive before you? The same way I survived before you. Poorly and with minimal joy. And now? Now we survive together. With maximum joy and occasional terror. That sounds perfect. It does, doesn't it? 6 months into their relationship, everything changed. It started with a phone call. Matteo was in Simone's apartment, cooking dinner while she reviewed case notes for a new client. His phone rang. He answered, listened, and his entire demeanor shifted. The warmth drained from his face. The walls came back up. In seconds, he transformed from Matteo, her loving partner, to Matteo Constanti, head of a crime family. I'll be there in 20 minutes, he said and hung up. What's wrong? Simone asked. Family business. I have to go. How bad? Bad. He looked at her and she saw genuine fear in his eyes. There's been an incident. One of our operations was compromised. The FBI raided 3 locations. They have evidence. They have witnesses. This is serious, Simone. Her blood ran cold. Are you in danger? Possibly, but more importantly, you might be. If they've been watching me, if they know about us. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. They could use me against you. Yes. Simone's mind raced through the implications. If the FBI knew about their relationship, they could subpoena her records, question her ethics, potentially charge her with obstruction if they believed she'd withheld information about Matteo's activities. Her career would be over, her reputation destroyed. But more than that, she could be in physical danger. If Matteo's enemies knew about her, if rival families saw her as a weakness to exploit, she became a target. What do we do? She asked. I protect you. First, last, and always. Matteo, no arguments. This is non-negotiable. My driver is going to take you somewhere safe. You'll stay there until I know the extent of the damage and who knows what. I'm not running. Yes, you are. Because I can't focus on fixing this if I'm worried about you. Please, Simone, let me protect you. She wanted to argue, wanted to insist she could handle herself, but she saw the desperation in his eyes and understood. This was how he showed love. Protection. Keeping her safe even at cost to himself. Okay, she said, but you come back to me. Promise me. I promise. He kissed her hard and desperate, like he was trying to memorize the feeling. Then he was gone, leaving Simone with a driver she'd never met and instructions to pack a bag for several days. The safe house was in Connecticut, a sprawling property surrounded by woods and protected by men with serious weapons. Simone spent 3 days there, unable to work, unable to contact anyone, slowly going insane with worry. Matteo called once a day, brief updates that told her nothing substantial. The situation was complicated. He was handling it. She needed to stay put. On the 4th day, he arrived in person. He looked exhausted. There were shadows under his eyes, lines of stress around his mouth, but he was alive, present, and when he saw her, his entire face softened with relief. It's handled, he said. What happened? The FBI raid was based on bad intelligence from an informant who turned out to be feeding them false information. They didn't find what they were looking for, and without solid evidence, they can't make charges stick. We've identified the informant. He's been dealt with. Simone didn't ask what dealt with meant. She didn't want to know. And me? Are we exposed? No. They don't know about us. Our relationship stayed private. You're safe. And you? I'm always in danger. That's the nature of my life. But this particular threat is neutralized. She walked into his arms and he held her tight, his face buried in her neck. I was so scared, he murmured. Not for me, for you. The thought of you being hurt because of me, I wasn't hurt. You protected me. This time. But there will be other times. Other threats. That's what being with me means, Simone. Constant danger. Constant looking over your shoulder. Is that really what you want? She pulled back to look at him. Are you trying to break up with me? I'm trying to give you an out, a chance to walk away before this life destroys you. I don't want an out. Simone, I want you, Matteo. All of you, including the danger, including the complications. I went into this with my eyes open. I'm not running now just because things got scary. You're sure? I'm sure. Most people bore me, remember? You're the only thing in my life that feels real. I'm not giving that up. He kissed her, and it was full of relief and love and promise. When they broke apart, he was smiling. You're insane, he said. Probably, but I'm your kind of insane. The best kind. They found their rhythm. Simone continued her practice, maintaining absolute confidentiality about everything she knew about Matteo's world. Matteo continued running his empire, but he carved out space for her. Real space. Time and attention and vulnerability he'd never given anyone else. They didn't live together, too risky, too public. But they spent every night they could together, alternating between her apartment and his penthouse. They built a life in the spaces between their obligations. Simone met some of Matteo's family. Carefully, gradually, with plausible deniability if anyone asked too many questions. She was introduced as a friend, a consultant, someone he valued for her advice. The truth was an open secret among his inner circle, but no one spoke it aloud. His underboss, Enzo Marchetti, took her aside one night after a family dinner. He's different with you, Enzo said, lighter, more human. He's always been human, Simone replied. He just hides it well. You've given him something we couldn't. Hope, maybe, or peace. Whatever it is, thank you. We've been worried about him for years, watching him burn himself out, seeing him isolate more and more. You've brought him back. He brought himself back. I just helped. Don't be modest. You've done what no one else could. You've made him believe love is possible. Do you think it is? In this life? For most of us? No. This life destroys soft things. But Matteo's different now. Stronger in some ways because he has something worth protecting besides the family. You've made him more human, and somehow that's made him a better leader. That's extraordinary. Simone thought about that conversation often in the months that followed. She'd never intended to change Matteo. She just wanted to understand him, but in understanding him, she'd helped him rediscover parts of himself he'd buried. And in being understood by him, she'd found pieces of herself she'd lost. They healed each other. Slowly, imperfectly, but genuinely. A year into their relationship, everything shifted again. Not because of external threats or FBI investigations, but because of something simpler and more profound. They'd reached the point where pretending this was temporary became impossible. It was a Wednesday night. Matteo had come to her apartment after a particularly brutal day. A negotiation had gone wrong. One of his men had been injured in a confrontation with a rival organization. The weight of responsibility was etched into every line of his face. Simone didn't ask questions. She just pulled him inside, sat him on the couch, and poured him a glass of the expensive scotch he preferred. Then she sat beside him, close but not crowding, waiting. Tell me something good, he said finally. Something that has nothing to do with violence or death or the constant calculation of threat assessment. I published a paper today, she said, on trauma responses in high-stress professions. It's going to appear in the Journal of Criminal Psychology next month. That's your third publication this year. Fourth, actually. But who's counting? I am. I'm always counting your victories, Simone. They matter to me. She leaned her head against his shoulder. Tell me about your day. The real version, not the sanitized one. So he did. He told her about Marco, a soldier who'd been with the family for 15 years, who'd taken a bullet protecting a shipment. About the guilt Matteo felt for putting people in danger. About the exhaustion of making life and death decisions every single day. About the weight of knowing that his choices rippled out to affect hundreds of lives. I'm tired, he admitted. Not physically, existentially. I'm tired of being the person everyone fears. Tired of the isolation that comes with power. Tired of wondering if I'll live to see 40. What would you do if you could walk away? Simone asked. If you could choose any life, what would it look like? Matteo was quiet for a long time. I'd want something simple. A house, somewhere quiet. Maybe the countryside in Italy, near where my mother's family came from. I'd want to wake up every morning without checking for threats. I'd want to have dinner without calculating exit strategies. I'd want... He paused. I'd want you in all of it. Always. Simone's heart clenched. Matteo? I know it's impossible. I inherited this life. I can't just walk away. Too many people depend on me. Too many enemies would see it as weakness and attack. But I can imagine it sometimes. A different life. One where I'm just a man who loves a woman without all the violence and complexity. Would you really want that? A simple life? You'd be bored within a week. Maybe. Or maybe I'd finally be at peace. He turned to look at her. Do you ever imagine a different life? One where you're not treating criminals and I'm not running a crime family? Sometimes, she admitted. But then I remember that if our lives were different, we never would have met. You wouldn't have ended up in my office. We wouldn't have challenged each other. We wouldn't have this. So our trauma and dysfunction brought us together. Our complexity brought us together. We're both too intelligent and too damaged for normal relationships. We need each other's particular brand of extraordinary. He pulled her closer, kissing the top of her head. I want you in my life permanently, legally, in every way that matters. Will you marry me? The question hung in the air. No ring, no romantic setting, no grand gesture, just Matteo being honest about what he wanted. Yes, Simone said without hesitation. You don't want time to think about it? I've been thinking about it for months. Yes, Matteo, I'll marry you. This life comes with risks, real, constant risks. You know that. I know, I don't care. You'll have to give up some of your autonomy. Accept protection when necessary. Deal with family politics. Navigate relationships with people who might resent you for having my attention. I know all of that. I still don't care. You could die because of me, Simone. Someone could target you to hurt me. Every day you're with me is a day you're in danger. And every day I'm without you is a day I'm only half alive. I'll take the danger. I'll take all of it. Because the alternative is going back to being bored and alone and pretending that's enough. It's not. You're enough. We're enough. He pulled her into his lap, holding her like she was the most precious thing in the world. I love you, Simone Laurent, more than I've ever loved anything, more than I thought I was capable of loving. I love you too, Matteo Constanti, all of you, the dangerous parts and the vulnerable parts and everything in between. When? He asked. When do you want to get married? Soon. I don't want to wait. Life is uncertain enough without dragging this out. 3 months? Perfect. They stayed like that for hours, wrapped around each other, planning a future that should have been impossible. They talked about the wedding, small, private, just family and trusted friends. They talked about where they'd live, probably his penthouse, which had better security. They talked about how to navigate the complexity of their merged lives. I'll keep my practice, Simone said firmly. I'm not giving up my career. I wouldn't ask you to. Your work is part of who you are. I fell in love with Doctor Simone Laurent, brilliant psychologist. I'm not trying to change you into someone else. Some of your family might expect me to step back, play the traditional wife role. Some of my family will have to adjust their expectations. You're not a traditional wife. You're my equal partner. Anyone who doesn't understand that can take it up with me. You're very protective. It's how I show love. You knew this about me. I did. I'm just making sure you know I don't need protecting from myself. From external threats, yes. From my own choices, no. Understood. You make your own decisions about your career and your life. I'm just here to support you and keep you safe from the dangers my world brings. That's acceptable. He laughed. You're negotiating the terms of our marriage like it's a business contract. Clarity prevents conflict. I learned that from you. Fair point. He kissed her slow and deep. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. Stay tonight. Stay every night until the wedding. I don't want to spend another night without you. What about discretion? What about keeping our relationship quiet? I'm tired of hiding. I'm tired of pretending you're just a consultant or a friend. I want everyone to know you're mine and I'm yours. Let them think what they want. That's dangerous. Everything about us is dangerous. At least this way we're dangerous together. Simone considered. He was right. They'd been careful for over a year, maintaining plausible deniability, keeping their relationship in the shadows. But that kind of secrecy was exhausting. and it implied they were ashamed, which they weren't. "All right," she said. "No more hiding, but we do this smart. We announce it properly. We make it clear I'm under your protection. We establish boundaries with your family so everyone knows I'm not to be threatened or manipulated." "Done. I'll call a family meeting tomorrow, make it official. Your underboss won't be thrilled. Enzo will be fine. He already knows. He approves, actually. Says you've made me more human and therefore more effective as a leader." "That's a strange compliment." "It's accurate, though. Before you, I was burning out, running on fumes and old rage. You gave me something to live for beyond duty and survival. That's made me better at everything." "I didn't do anything. You chose to open up. You chose to be vulnerable. I chose you. Best decision I ever made." The next day, Matteo called a family meeting. It was held at one of his legitimate businesses, a high-end Italian restaurant in Manhattan that served as a front for family meetings. The entire inner circle was there. Enzo, his underboss; Lucia, his cousin who handled the financial operations; Marco, who managed security; Rocco, who oversaw the construction business; a dozen other key people who kept the organization running. Simone attended as well. Matteo had insisted. This concerned her, so she deserved to be present. "Thank you all for coming," Matteo began. They were in a private dining room, the doors closed and guarded. "I have an announcement. Doctor Simone Laurent and I are getting married in 3 months. I'm telling you this now, so there are no surprises and no misunderstandings." Silence. Everyone stared at Simone with varying degrees of surprise, calculation, and in a few cases, disapproval. "Simone is my partner in every sense of the word," Matteo continued. "She's under my protection. Anyone who threatens her, insults her, or attempts to use her against me will answer to me personally. Is that understood?" Murmurs of agreement. No one wanted to cross Matteo Constanti. "She's keeping her practice where," he added. "She'll continue her work as a psychologist. Her professional life is separate from family business. No one asks her about her clients. No one pressures her for information. Her ethics and her career are not negotiable. Clear?" More agreement, though Simone saw a few skeptical looks. They'd be watching her, testing her, trying to determine if she was a liability or an asset. "Does anyone have questions?" Matteo asked. Enzo spoke up. "With respect, boss, this makes her a target. Rival families will see her as a way to get to you. We'll need to increase security significantly." "Already planned. Simone will have a protection detail whenever she's outside her office or our home. Discreet but effective." "I have a question," Lucia said. She was a sharp woman in her early 40s, beautiful and ruthless. "No disrespect, Dr. Laurent, but what do you bring to this family besides the obvious personal connection?" It was a test. Simone recognized it immediately. Lucia was asking if Simone was just a pretty face or if she had actual value. "I bring psychological expertise," Simone said calmly. "I understand criminal behavior, threat assessment, interrogation techniques, and manipulation tactics. I can profile potential threats, analyze negotiation strategies, and identify weaknesses in adversaries. My skills have already been useful in several situations, though I'm bound by confidentiality, so I can't discuss specifics." Lucia raised an eyebrow. "You'd use your professional skills to help us?" "Within ethical boundaries, yes. I won't violate client confidentiality. I won't participate in anything illegal. But I can consult on psychological matters. I can help understand people you're dealing with. That's valuable." "It is," Lucia agreed. A small smile appeared. "Welcome to the family, Dr. Laurent." The rest of the meeting went smoothly. Questions were asked and answered. Boundaries were established. By the end, everyone understood that Simone was permanent, protected, and not to be underestimated. As people filed out, Enzo pulled Matteo aside. Simone pretended not to listen but heard every word. "She's good," Enzo said. "Smart, composed, didn't let Lucia rattle her. But, boss, you're painting a target on her back. You know that." "I know. That's why we're increasing security." "Is she worth the risk?" "She's worth everything. I'd burn down the world before I let anything happen to her." "Understood. I'll make sure everyone knows. She's untouchable." "Thank you, Enzo." Later, when they were alone in Matteo's car heading back to his penthouse, Simone let out a long breath. "That was intense," she said. "You handled it perfectly. Lucia was testing you. You passed. She's going to be a problem, isn't she? Lucia? No. She respects competence, and you proved you're competent. She might push boundaries sometimes, but she won't actively work against you. And the others? Most of them will fall in line. A few might resent you for having my attention. We'll deal with them as needed. This is really happening. We're really doing this. Having second thoughts? No, just processing. A year ago, I was alone in my office analyzing criminals and going home to an empty apartment. Now I'm marrying a mafia boss and being introduced to his crime family. It's surreal. Regret it? Not even a little bit. The next 3 months passed in a blur of wedding preparations and normal life. Simone continued seeing clients, though she was more careful now about security. She had a protection detail, 2 former Special Forces soldiers who stayed discreetly close whenever she was in public. She hated the loss of privacy, but understood the necessity. Matteo threw himself into both wedding planning and business. He wanted the wedding to be perfect, which meant personally overseeing every detail. The venue, a private estate in Westchester, the flowers, white roses, and calla lilies. The guest list, carefully curated to include only people they trusted absolutely. The security, which rivaled that of a presidential event. "You're being obsessive," Simone observed one night. They were in his office, and he was reviewing security protocols for the 15th time. "I'm being thorough. You're being paranoid. In my world, paranoia keeps people alive. Matteo." She took the papers from his hands and set them aside. "The security's fine. Everything is fine. We're going to have a beautiful wedding, and nothing is going to happen." "You don't know that." "You're right. I don't. But I know this. Worrying about every possible disaster won't prevent them. It'll just make you miserable. Trust your people. Trust your planning. Trust that we can handle whatever comes." He pulled her into his lap, burying his face in her neck. "I'm terrified," he admitted quietly. "I'm terrified something will happen to you, that my enemies will strike when you're most vulnerable, that I'll lose you before we even get started. You won't lose me. I'm tougher than I look. I know. But I love you more than I thought possible, and that makes me vulnerable in ways I've never been before." "Good. Vulnerability means you're human. It means you're alive. Don't fight it, Matteo. Just feel it." "What if feeling it makes me weak?" "Feeling it makes you strong, because now you have something worth fighting for besides survival. You have love. You have me. And I have you. Together we're stronger than we are apart." He held her tighter. "When did you become so wise?" "I've always been wise. You just finally started listening." He laughed despite his fear. "I love you, Simone." "I love you too. Now stop obsessing over security protocols and come to bed. Tomorrow's another day and we'll face it together." They were married on a perfect Saturday in June. The estate was beautiful, surrounded by gardens in full bloom. Security was everywhere but nearly invisible, allowing guests to relax and celebrate. The ceremony was short and intimate, held outdoors under an arbor covered in white roses. Simone wore a dress she'd custom designed with a local boutique, elegant, sophisticated, with intricate lace detail and a silhouette that honored her curves. Her locks were styled in an elaborate updo, woven with small white flowers. She wore her grandmother's pearls, brought from Haiti by her mother decades ago. She looked stunning. Matteo wore a perfectly tailored tuxedo, Italian craftsmanship at its finest. He looked dangerous and handsome and completely overwhelmed when he saw Simone walking down the aisle. They exchanged vows they'd written themselves. Matteo promised to love her fiercely, protect her absolutely, and challenge her intellectually for the rest of their lives. Simone promised to understand him completely, stand beside him fearlessly, and never let him forget his humanity. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Matteo kissed her like she was air and he'd been drowning. The guests applauded, and for a moment everything was perfect. The reception was elegant, good food, better wine, speeches from family members who'd come to accept and even respect Simone. Enzo gave a toast about how love makes people better, not weaker. Lucia spoke about the importance of strong women in positions of power. Even Marco, gruff and suspicious by nature, admitted that Simone had proven herself worthy of Matteo's devotion. During their first dance, Matteo whispered in her ear, "Most people fear me." Simone smiled against his shoulder, "And most people bore me. Looks like we're stuck with each other." "I wouldn't have it any other way." "Neither would I." The night ended late, with Simone and Matteo finally alone in the honeymoon suite that had been prepared for them. They made love slowly, tenderly, taking time to savor each other. Afterward, lying tangled in expensive sheets with moonlight painting patterns on the walls, Simone felt more at peace than she'd ever been. "What are you thinking?" Matteo asked, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her back. "That I'm happy. Genuinely, completely happy. I didn't know I could feel this way." "Neither did I." He kissed her forehead. "Thank you." "For what?" "For seeing me. For not being afraid. For choosing me even when you knew better. Thank you for being worth the risk." They fell asleep wrapped around each other, two people who'd found something impossible and refused to let it go. They fell asleep wrapped around each other, two people who'd found something impossible and refused to let it go. Marriage changed things in unexpected ways. Simone moved into Matteo's penthouse, though she kept her apartment in the West Village for clients who preferred meeting in that location. They found rhythms that worked. Mornings where they'd have coffee together before Matteo left for whatever business demanded his attention. Evenings where they'd decompress, sharing their days, helping each other process the stress and complexity of their separate worlds. Simone continued her practice, though now she was Doctor Constanti to anyone who knew about the marriage. Some clients were nervous about the connection. A few left, unwilling to trust their secrets to someone married to organized crime. But most stayed, recognizing that Simone's professionalism and ethics remained unchanged. She also began consulting for the family on psychological matters. Nothing illegal, nothing that violated her professional code, but legitimate analysis of people and situations. She helped profile potential business partners, identifying red flags and deception. She advised on negotiation strategies, using her understanding of human behavior to give Matteo advantages. She became an asset beyond just being the boss's wife. The family slowly accepted her. Lucia became an ally, recognizing that Simone's intelligence and Matteo's protection made her powerful in her own right. Enzo treated her with respect bordering on reverence, grateful for the positive changes in Matteo. Even the lower-level soldiers learned to acknowledge her properly, understanding that disrespect toward Simone was career suicide. For 6 months, everything was as perfect as life could be in their complicated world. Then everything fell apart. It started with a name Simone hadn't heard in years, Marcus Webb. He'd been a client 3 years ago when she was still building her practice, a white-collar criminal convicted of embezzlement and fraud, who'd been mandated to therapy as part of his sentencing. Simone had treated him for 6 months, standard sessions dealing with narcissistic personality traits and a complete lack of remorse. He'd been released from prison 4 months ago. She'd assumed he'd moved on with his life and forgotten about her. She was wrong. Marcus Webb had spent his time in prison planning revenge, not against the people who'd actually wronged him, his former business partners who'd testified against him, the prosecutors who'd convicted him, but against Simone. In his twisted logic, she'd failed to fix him, failed to help him avoid consequences, and therefore deserved to be punished. The first sign was a letter, delivered to her office, handwritten, full of rambling accusations and threats. Simone immediately took it to Matteo. "He's escalating," she said, showing him the letter. They were in his office at the penthouse late evening, the city lights sprawling beneath them. The language patterns suggest he's been fixating on this for months. He views me as responsible for his imprisonment. Matteo read the letter, his expression hardening with each line. "He's threatening you explicitly. You'll pay for what you did. You'll understand what it means to lose everything. This is actionable. I know, I'm reporting it to the police tomorrow. But Matteo, he's dangerous. Not in the organized crime way. He doesn't have resources or connections, but he's so desperate and obsessed, which makes him unpredictable. I'll have security increased immediately. You don't go anywhere without at least 2 guards. Office, home, anywhere in between. I'm already always protected. Not enough. This man wants to hurt you. I'm not taking chances." Simone understood his fear, but also saw the bigger picture. If you overreact, if you send a dozen men after him, it'll escalate the situation. He'll see it as proof that you're controlling me, that I'm not really independent. His delusion will expand. I don't care about his delusions. I care about keeping you safe. I know, but we need to be smart about this. Let me file the police report. Let law enforcement handle it officially. You can increase security discreetly, but don't send people after him directly. That'll make things worse. Matteo was clearly unhappy with this approach, but he nodded. Fine. We do it your way first. But if he escalates, if he so much as gets near you, I'm handling it my way. Agreed. The police took the threat seriously, especially given Simone's profile as a prominent psychologist and Matteo's reputation. A restraining order was issued. Patrol cars increased their presence near her office, everything official and by the book. But Marcus Webb didn't care about restraining orders. 3 days later, he showed up at Simone's office. She was with a client, a young woman dealing with trauma from an abusive relationship. They heard shouting in the reception area, Marcus demanding to see the bitch who ruined my life. Simone's assistant, a smart young man named Derek, tried to calm the situation, called security, called the police. But Marcus was beyond reason. He had a gun. The next few minutes unfolded with terrifying speed. Marcus forced his way past Derek into the hallway. Simone's client screamed. Simone moved on instinct, putting herself between Marcus and the client, hands up in the universal gesture of peace. Marcus, she said, her voice calm despite the adrenaline flooding her system. Put the gun down. This isn't what you want. You don't know what I want, he screamed. Sweat poured down his face. His hands shook. You were supposed to help me. You were supposed to fix me. Instead, you wrote reports that helped them lock me away. 3 years, Dr. Laurent. 3 years in hell because of you. I wrote honest evaluations. That's my job. I can't lie in my reports. You could have helped me. You could have said I was rehabilitated, that I wasn't a threat. But you didn't. You sided with them. I documented what I observed in our sessions. You showed no remorse. No understanding of how your actions hurt people. I couldn't lie about that. So, this is my fault? Everything is always my fault? I didn't say that. But Marcus pointing a gun at me won't fix anything. It'll just make everything worse. You'll go back to prison, probably for life this time. Is that what you want? Behind Marcus, Simone saw movement, building security approaching carefully. She needed to keep him talking, keep him focused on her. What do you want from me? She asked. Really want. If you could have anything right now, what would it be? I want my life back. Tears streamed down his face. I want my career, my reputation, my freedom. I want to not be a convict. I want people to respect me again. I understand that. But killing me won't give you those things. It'll make you understand. It'll make you feel what I felt. Powerless. Destroyed. I already understand, Marcus. I understand you're in pain. I understand you feel the world has been unfair. I understand you're desperate. But I also understand that you're at a choice point right now. You can make this worse or you can make it better. The choice is yours. For a moment, Marcus wavered. The gun lowered fractionally. Simone saw the confusion in his eyes, the part of him that didn't really want to be a murderer warring with the part that wanted revenge. Then everything happened at once. Security rushed in. Marcus panicked. The gun came back up. A shot fired. Simone felt the impact in her shoulder, spinning her around. Pain exploded through her system. She hit the ground hard, consciousness flickering. Through the haze, she heard more shots. Shouting, bodies hitting the floor. Then, nothing but darkness. She woke up in a hospital room. Bright lights, beeping machines, the smell of antiseptic. And Matteo sitting beside her bed, holding her hand with a grip that was almost painful. Matteo, she said. Her voice came out raspy. His head snapped up. Relief flooded his face, followed immediately by a mix of emotions so intense she could barely process them. You're awake. Thank God, you're awake. What happened? You were shot. Shoulder. The bullet went through, missed the major blood vessels and bone. You're going to be fine. The doctor said you'll make a full recovery. Marcus? Dead. Security shot him when he fired at you. He's not going to hurt anyone ever again. Simone closed her eyes, processing. She'd been shot. She'd nearly died. Marcus was dead. Everything had escalated exactly as she'd feared, despite all their precautions. How long have I been unconscious? 14 hours. You lost a lot of blood. Went into surgery immediately. I've been here the entire time. She looked at him properly. He looked terrible. Eyes red-rimmed, face haggard. Still wearing the same clothes from yesterday, now rumpled and stained with what she realized was her blood. I'm okay, she said softly. You're not okay. You were shot because I didn't protect you well enough, because I listened when you said to handle it officially instead of handling it my way. Matteo, no, you can't think like that. Why not? It's true. If I'd sent people after him immediately, If I'd eliminated the threat, this wouldn't have happened. If you'd done that, you'd have committed murder. You'd be risking prison, risking everything you've built. Marcus was my responsibility. My former client. I should have recognized how dangerous he was. Don't. His voice was hard. Don't blame yourself for some delusional man's actions. This isn't your fault. And it's not yours either. Bad things happen, Matteo. Even with all the precautions in the world, sometimes bad things happen. He stood abruptly, pacing the small room like a caged animal. I can't do this. I can't sit back and watch you be in danger. Every time you leave our home, every time you see a client, every time you're out in the world, you're at risk because of who you are and who I am. I can't live like this. What are you saying? He stopped pacing, turning to face her. I'm saying maybe this was a mistake. Us. Maybe you'd be safer if you weren't connected to me. Simone felt something cold settle in her chest. Are you breaking up with me? I'm trying to protect you. By leaving me, by deciding unilaterally what's best for me, that's not protection, Matteo. That's control. You almost died. And that's the risk I agreed to when I married you. You don't get to make that choice for me now just because it got real. I knew the dangers. I accepted them. I'm still accepting them. You're being unreasonable. I'm being consistent. You're the one having a panic response because you felt helpless. I understand that, Matteo. I do. But you don't get to push me away because you're scared. He sank into the chair, his head in his hands. I watched them wheel you into surgery not knowing if you'd survive. I sat in that waiting room covered in your blood, thinking about all the things I never got to say, all the years we might not get. And I realized that loving you is the most terrifying thing I've ever experienced. Simone reached for his hand with her good arm. Loving anyone is terrifying. It means giving them the power to destroy you, but it also means experiencing something beautiful and real. You don't get to back out just because it's scary. What if next time I can't protect you? What if next time you don't survive? Then we'll have had this time, these months, this love, and it'll have been worth it. He looked at her and she saw tears in his eyes. I don't know how to do this, how to be this vulnerable, how to live with the fear. You do it one day at a time. You trust that we're stronger together. You remember that I chose this life knowing the risks, and you let me make my own choices about what I'm willing to risk. Even if those choices terrify me, especially then, because that's what love is. Letting someone be autonomous even when it scares you, trusting them to know themselves and their limits. He was quiet for a long moment, then, I'm sorry. You're right. I was trying to control the situation by controlling you. That's not fair. No, it's not. But I understand the impulse. You've spent your entire life trying to control everything because losing control meant punishment and pain. This situation made you feel helpless, so you tried to regain control the only way you knew how. You're analyzing me. I'm understanding you. There's a difference. He smiled weakly. I love you, Simone Constanti, even when you're calling me out on my bullshit from a hospital bed. I love you too, Matteo Constanti, even when you're having emotional breakdowns and trying to make unilateral decisions about our relationship. We're a mess. We're magnificent. We're just complicated. Most people fear me, he said softly. And most people bore me, she replied. But you challenge me. You see me. You love me in a way no one else ever has. I'm not giving that up. Not for safety. Not for anything. He leaned forward and kissed her, gentle because of her injuries, but full of everything he felt. When they broke apart, both had tears on their cheeks. No more talk of leaving, she said. We're in this together. Through danger and fear and everything else. Agreed? Agreed. I'm sorry I tried to make that choice for you. I forgive you. Now go home, shower, change, and get some sleep. You look terrible. I'm not leaving you alone in this hospital. I'm not alone. I have security outside my door, and I'll still be here when you get back. Go. Take care of yourself so you can take care of us. Reluctantly, he agreed. Enzo arrived to relieve him, taking up position in the chair beside Simone's bed. The underboss looked concerned but calm. How are you feeling, Dr. Constanti? He asked. Like I got shot, but I'll survive. Good. The boss would burn down the city if anything happened to you. I know. That's why I need to heal quickly. Can't have him committing arson on my behalf. Enzo laughed. You're good for him. Before you, he was all cold calculation. Now he feels things. It makes him more human. Better leader, ironically. How so? People follow him out of fear, but they die for him out of love. Showing vulnerability, showing he loves you and would do anything to protect you, that's made the family more loyal. They see him as more than just the boss. They see him as a man worth following. That's an interesting observation. It's the truth. You've changed him, doctor, made him better. The family respects that. Simone spent 3 days in the hospital before being cleared to go home. Her shoulder was healing well, though physical therapy would be necessary. She'd have a scar, a permanent reminder of the day things went wrong. Matteo was different after the shooting. More attentive, but also more careful about respecting her autonomy. He'd learned the lesson. You can't protect someone by controlling them. You can only offer support and trust them to make their own choices. Security increased, but it was done thoughtfully. Additional guards at her office, better surveillance systems, panic buttons installed in key locations. But Simone still saw clients, still lived her life, still maintained her independence. They went to couples therapy, ironic, a psychologist seeking therapy, but necessary. They worked through the trauma of the shooting, addressed Matteo's control issues and Simone's tendency to minimize danger, learned better communication strategies for when fear threatened to overwhelm logic. Slowly, they found their footing again. 2 years into their marriage, Simone gave a presentation at a psychology conference in Boston. It was about treating high-functioning individuals with criminal histories, carefully anonymized case studies that illustrated new therapeutic approaches. Matteo attended, sitting in the back of the auditorium, watching her command the room with her intelligence and expertise. She was magnificent, confident, articulate, brilliant. Several attendees came up afterward to praise her work, to ask questions, to request consultations. When the crowds finally cleared, Matteo approached. "You were incredible," he said. "Thank you for coming. I know these conferences bore you." "Nothing about you bores me, remember?" She smiled. "Want to get dinner? Celebrate?" "Actually, I have something else in mind." He led her outside to a car waiting at the curb. They drove to the Boston Harbor, to a restaurant with a view of the water. Private table, candles, the works. "What's this about?" Simone asked as they settled in. "This is about celebrating you, your achievements, your brilliance, the fact that you've published 8 papers this year and are being considered for a position at Harvard Medical School." "How did you know about Harvard?" "I know everything. It's kind of my thing." "They haven't officially offered yet." "They will. And when they do, you should take it. It's a tremendous opportunity." "It would mean changing my practice. Less clinical work, more research and teaching." "Would you like that?" Simone considered. "I think so. Clinical work is rewarding, but I'm ready for a new challenge. Teaching the next generation of psychologists. Contributing to the field through research. It feels like a natural evolution." "Then do it. I support whatever you choose. Even if it means less time together, more travel, different schedules. We'll figure it out. We always do." He reached across the table and took her hand. "Simone, these past 2 years have been the best of my life. Even with the danger and the shooting and all the complications, you've made me more than I was, better than I thought I could be. You've done the same for me. I want you to have everything you want in life, every achievement, every opportunity, every dream, and I'll support you in whatever way helps you get there." That's very romantic for someone who claims not to do emotions well. I've had a good teacher. They had dinner talking about the future, about Simone's potential position at Harvard, about Matteo's plans to expand into more legitimate business ventures, slowly, transitioning away from the illegal operations, about, maybe, someday, having children. "Would you want that?" Simone asked. "Kids?" "With you?" "Yes, I think you'd be an incredible mother, and I think I'd like to try being a father, a better one than mine was. You'd be wonderful. You're patient and protective and capable of real love. Those are the important things. We'd have to be careful. Make sure they were protected. Make sure my world didn't touch them. One step at a time. Let's master being married first. Then we can think about expanding the family." "Agreed." They finished dinner and walked along the harbor, hand in hand, talking about everything and nothing. two people who'd found something impossible and built something beautiful from it. Most people fear me, Matteo said, echoing the words that had started everything. And most people bore me, Simone replied, completing the refrain that had become their private joke. I'm glad we found each other. So am I. Best mistake I ever made, agreeing to treat you. Best choice I ever made, walking into your office. They continued walking, two extraordinary people living an extraordinary life. It wasn't easy, it wasn't simple, but it was theirs, built on honesty, understanding, and the kind of love that comes from being truly seen. And that, they both agreed, was worth everything.